You're listening to the Limitless Leadership Podcast, the podcast designed to help automotive repair shops learn how to lead, coach, train, and manage their team better by sharing proven techniques and thought-provoking interviews from industry leaders. Are you ready to transform your leadership skills by tapping into unrecognized potential to achieve limitless results? Let's get ready for liftoff. It's time to go from great to greater. Here's today's episode.
Welcome to the Limitless Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Parnell. Whether it's inspirational guests like the one we have today or jam-packed episodes dedicated to affecting change in the automotive repair industry, the goal here is quite simple: to reach people and build leaders. And we know that you're listening here because you want to live today to make an impact for tomorrow. So thank you for being here. Let's get into today's episode. I'm excited about today's episode. Our guest today is a friend of mine. He is a husband. He's a father. He's the Group Editorial Director for the Vehicle Repair Group at Endeavor. Our guest today is Chris Jones. Chris, thanks for being here, man.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be here, Josh. Thanks for having me.
Well, Chris, I'm going to begin by asking you to share, when I say the Group Editorial Director for the Vehicle Repair Group at Endeavor, share with the audience what that means, and then we're going to get into who you are and your background.
Sure. So my role at Endeavor as the Group Editorial Director is I'm in charge of overseeing the other editors within our portfolio. So in our portfolio, we have professional tool and equipment news. We've got Aftermarket Business World. We have Modern Tire Dealer. We've got Professional Distributor, Fender Bender Magazine, ABRN, Motor Age, Ratchet and Wrench, and National Oil and Lube News. And so my job is to just help these editors to become as successful as they want to be in their position.
Okay, excellent. And so let's get into what got you here. I mean, so I love where you're at. Let's find out what got you here to begin with. So go ahead and share a little bit about your background and what you do.
Sure. So I happened into journalism in maybe 2000. I was working in a creative services department at a newspaper. It was a daily newspaper. And there happened to be a job ad for a sports writer that was persistently in the newspaper for week after week. And so finally I inquired about the position, given that creative services as a designer, I was working day shift and then sports guys work nights. So I asked if I could, fill that position, try it out. They gave me an opportunity. I went and covered a game story on Friday night, a high school football game, came in Monday morning. There's a little note on my desk from the publisher, come see me in the office. I was rest assured, I thought I was in trouble. I knew that he was going to, give it to me. And so I went into his office and he's like, hey, I've been getting calls about this story. And I was like, uh-oh. And then he's like, hey, I'd love to keep you in sports. I thought it was just a great story. And he's kind of just gushing praise on me for the story. And, he offered me a position in sports. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'd love to take that. So I transitioned from design into sports, covered high school football, covered soccer, covered softball, covered tennis, covered track, just had a good time doing the whole gamut of high school sports for a good amount of time, and then went from sports writer to sports editor. And then from there, moved on from newspapers into marketing, from marketing into just starting a design business. And then from that to back into writing again, where I became the editor of a parenting magazine, a health magazine, and a couple of other small health beats, which was a lot of fun.
Very good. And you found yourself after that in an industry that you weren't necessarily thinking you'd eventually get into, which is the automotive industry. How did you get into the automotive industry, and what brought you to Ratchet and Wrench initially?
Yeah, so that was purely accidental, I'd say. So we'd gotten through COVID. I was working independently through COVID. I was managing a local magazine, and they were very concerned about a second round of COVID, a second round of shutdowns, advertisers not wanting to pony up money to be in publication, and their ability to pay me as an editor. So I kind of saw the handwriting on the wall and decided that, but this is probably a good time for me to get back into another publication, get back on a team, and really just find a company that's growing. So I found an ad on Indeed that really highlighted all the skills that I had as an editor, just even with my creative background. So I applied for the position, and then got a call back, got a kind of a screening, and then I did 3 interviews, and then finally they were like, hey, so what do you think about automotive? And I was like, I have no automotive background, but I checked the boxes for everything else. I'm really comfortable talking business, talking marketing, talking growth. And so I kind of leaned into that. I was offered the job. I just really leaned into the stuff that I knew until I learned automotive. over the course of the first year and a half.
Automotive is something that, that it takes a special skill set and knowledge to be able to serve guests in the best way possible. And for a lot of customers or guests who don't know automotive, like the ones who are in automotive, there's a very heavy reliance on that person sharing, with the guest what's necessary, and really trusting that this person is being honest. And we know that trust is something that can go a long way in every relationship. That's really the foundation of many relationships. But something for me, whenever I got into automotive, I had some preconceived notions about the automotive industry that have changed over my course of time in the industry. And one of them is the fact that there's a lot of great companies out there with great people of integrity who truly want to take care of guests and serve guests. I'll ask you, is there any kind of perception that you had prior to coming into this industry to now that's been eye-opening for you?
Yeah, I had the same trust issues. I was always concerned that when I dropped my car off at the shop, that there'd be something invariably wrong. Like every time I took my car for the annual inspection, I'm like, okay, they're gonna give me a laundry list of things to fix, and it's gonna cost me, a couple $1,000s every time. So I would be mentally planning that every time I would drop my car off. And I felt like, automotive just was a money grab. They didn't really care about me as a customer. They just wanted to find something to service my car on. And then as I've gotten into the industry, as I've gotten to know shop owners, befriend shop owners, and just, listen to them, I definitely feel very differently now because I do see what they go through. I see the concern that they have, for people's safety. I see the compassion they have for their customers. Their shop owners who go out of their way to create, handmade, leave behinds and gifts for their customers. They're sending their customers, offers. They're doing everything to make their customers feel welcome and cared about. And that was a complete mental shift for me when I saw that. Like I realized that, okay, they're not out to be corrupt, to rip people off. They really do want you to have the safest vehicle possible on the road, but also so that you're not, endangering other people as well.
You've had an opportunity to interview a lot of folks in the industry. As you mentioned, a lot of shop owners. You have a pretty wide network of folks in the industry. Knowing what you know, what do you feel like is the biggest opportunity area for shop owners to capture right now?
I think embracing technology. I think, auto repair shop owners really need to embrace the technology that's coming down the corridor. A lot of other industries have done that. A lot of other industries have locked in with technology and connected with it and found ways to use technology to become more efficient, to serve customers better, to make their service frictionless. And I think that automotive really just needs to embrace whatever technology is coming through and down the pipeline that helps them to serve their customers quicker, faster, helps them to, connect with their customers on a human level. I think that's the way to go.
Love that. I mean, you're talking about affecting change, and nothing changes if nothing changes. Let me ask you, what's been the biggest, what is the reason why a lot of shop owners are not embracing change like technology?
I think change is scary. I think, when you break down change, no matter whether change is positive or change is negative, I think there's a traumatic element to change. Like change shakes you up. It doesn't have to, I think we typically think trauma is a negative response to change, but it can also be a positive response to change too. It's a difference. And you're like, how do I confront this? How do I change this? Is this going to change the way we do business? Is it going to cost me more money? Like, I think there's so much cost to count. And I think there's the amount of time that it takes to sit down and count the cost versus the number of hours you have to actually do work. You kind of come into conflict.
So this is a leadership podcast, so I'm going to ask some leadership questions as well, but how do you lead someone through change?
I think in leading people through change, you have to figure out what it is that makes them apprehensive first. You have to ask a lot of questions. Just keep, like, it's kind of like they tell you about doing the why drill down. Just keep asking why, till you get to the bottom, right? And figure, okay, at the end, okay, what is it that I'm really scared of? Well, I'm scared of, I'm scared of technology replacing X, Y, and Z, or I'm scared of the fact that maybe I'm in my 50s and I'm thinking about retirement, and now the industry's telling me that I have to embrace technology and change my shop, and I'm 10 years away from retiring. I don't want to do that. So we got to figure out what it is that makes us apprehensive, and then figure out, okay, well, if that's the case, can you think about the future of the shop when you're gone? How does this, because everybody wants to leave a legacy. So think about your legacy as opposed to, what's your current feelings about something.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, at the end of our life, we're all going to leave a legacy. And so really what we're doing today can determine the legacy that we're leaving tomorrow. Let me ask you a more broad leadership question, a very simple question. And that is, what does the term leadership mean to you?
Man, I think for me, leadership is, when I think about being a leader, I think it's someone who is trying to draw something out of another person, right? I'm trying to draw the best out of somebody. So if I'm, working with you, or if I'm paired with one of my editors, I'm trying to draw their best possible selves out. So I'm looking at the things that they do well, and I'm praising that. I'm looking at the things that they're not doing so well, and I'm figuring out why they're not doing those well, and how can we figure out the process for improving those systems that they're struggling with. And I'm at the end of the day, I'm wanting them to really feel good about, one, who they are, two, the direction and course of their career, and three, the fact that, that they're valid, that they matter to the team.
Love it, man. You just said a key word, that they're valid. And, something I share often is how there's a lot of opportunity for empathy, especially in this industry. And empathizing with someone doesn't mean that we necessarily have to experience the same situation as that person, but it does mean that we can imagine their circumstances and accept their feelings without invalidating them. And I think the key word there is invalidating, because a lot of us are unintentionally invalidating those that we are serving or those that we're leading. Let me ask you this, Chris, in terms of, your definition of leadership, it's what's amazing about it is it's synonymous with coaching. Of course I'm biased because I am a coach, but talking about drawing the best out of people, that really is the responsibility for a leader, to influence people in a way where they are developing that team member to go from great to greater. What do you think it is about shop owners specifically that there is maybe a disconnect in terms of, for the ones who are unable to lead effectively? What advice would you give to someone who's struggling to develop a team member?
So for a shop owner who's struggling to develop a team member, I think you almost have to start looking within. Like, is it something that I'm doing? Am I not approachable? Because I think that's number one. Like, if I'm not connecting with somebody, then I've got to look within and say, am I not approachable? There's something about me that this person doesn't feel comfortable being vulnerable with, sharing with, talking to, and I've got to figure that out first and foremost. So secondly, after that, I think you need to figure out, where that person's shortcomings are. If they're having struggles with a particular thing, in the shop, whether it's a particular repair or something they're doing, figure out where those shortcomings are, and then helping them through that. I think you got to, like you talked about before, just having that empathy, like getting your sleeves rolled up and getting close to a person. I think that's really the big thing in connecting with someone, because it's what I tell, people about children. Like, you see people who have kids, and like you see that they have this disconnect with their children because like they have this authoritarian leadership style with their kids. And it's like, you have to, you have to have permission to speak into somebody's life. You just can't walk into somebody and just plow them over or give them advice or, give them correction. They have to give you permission, and you have to earn that permission to speak into their life.
I think we can earn it too by asking questions. I mean, you talked about this earlier, Chris. I mean, man, the more questions we can ask, the better we can understand somebody. And I don't want to glaze over what you just shared too. When I asked about the advice that you could give to a shop owner who's struggling to develop their team member, the first piece of advice that you gave is, hey, let's look at ourselves first. Like, look in the mirror and ask ourselves, is there something I can be doing differently to better influence or better connect with this team member? I think that goes such a long way. I mean, you're literally describing one of the 7 habits of highly effective people, which is to seek first to understand, then to be understood. And what I see, even in coaching in this industry, I see a lot of folks who are so set on providing directive after directive after directive, but they're not set on asking questions for the sake of direction. And the two things that every person needs and quite frankly deserves in every relationship, especially professionally, is clarity and direction. So if we can first begin to learn, who am I leading? Who am I working with? I want to understand who this person is, so that then I can provide some direction. But we've got to be able to learn first before we, about us and what we can do differently, before we just start pointing fingers and saying, you need to do this, you need to do that. What do we need to do first, right? Let's look within. I love the fact that you brought that up. So, Chris, I actually want to go back to, I wanted to ask a follow-up question to something you shared earlier, but I have a tendency to rabbit trail. You mentioned earlier about way back when, in the early 2000s, when you got your sports writing job, and you covered a story and you wrote an article, and your boss called you in and you were like, man, this is not going to go well. I want to ask, do you remember what story you covered?
Yeah, it was a high school football story. I don't remember the two teams, though. I remember, of course, I was covering Culpeper County High School, but I don't remember who they were playing that day. Yeah.
Do you remember what was it about your story that set your story above the rest? I'm curious.
It's funny because I was so green. Like I didn't know all the rules of reporting, so I was writing it as if I were writing it for ESPN. So I was just totally just having fun with the story, getting some fun quotes, like just putting all the action in there, and to me, I was like, okay, this is fun. This is like me writing for ESPN, even though it's a local newspaper.
Love it. So I'm going to ask a writing question then, because you are you've been a writer most of your, if not all of your career. So how has your writing evolved over the last 20 plus years?
Oh man, so much. So much so. So I learned over the years how to tell a good story. I learned a lot about story structure. Basically like learning how to draw from examples that people can relate to, whether that's like a historical story or a sports story or pop culture. So learning how to connect to the reader through story examples. I learned a lot about brevity. Initially, because when you're a young writer, you're writing and you want to sound really, really great. And so you're writing and you're putting a lot of filler words in there. And I learned that, hey, cut back on that and just be brief, get to the point sometimes. So learning how to vary my writing styles was a big one, so that every story doesn't have the same style because they have different purposes.
I heard a quote not too long ago about talking about how to develop a keynote speech. And the quote was something along the lines of, if I had 15 more minutes, I would have been able to shorten my speech by 30 minutes or something along those lines, because it's so easy for us to just ramble when we're not prepared. But when we can take the time to prepare, it allows us the opportunity to be more clear and concise. And people are going to resonate with that clear and conciseness rather than the just rabbit trailing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when you think about like the fact that the Gettysburg Address was one of the most powerful speeches in human history, it was like 277 words.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I didn't even realize that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. So brevity. So brevity is something, if you're listening and you want to be a writer, don't forget to be brief. Keep it brief, because that's how one way you can connect with your reader. Let me ask you, what advice would you give to someone who says, you know what, I have a story inside. I know I want to tell it. I know I want to share it. We all know there are people out there who need to hear other people's stories, but some of us are just afraid to put it out there. What advice would you give to someone who's thinking that way?
Oh, do it. Yeah, absolutely. Write it down. Get it down some way, shape, or form, whether you write it, and if you don't think you can sit down and type it, you can dictate it and transcribe it. I mean, the technology is phenomenal, so that you can sit there and open your voice recorder and say everything you need to say and just kind of piecemealing it together and just put it on a document. But I would get the story down. I think everybody's story is worth telling. Everyone's got something that someone can be inspired by. I mean, I'm a person who firmly believes you can learn from anybody, no matter who that person is, whether you like them or not, no matter what station of life they're in, you can learn from anybody.
Love that, Chris. Man, I'm a big believer in that as well. I'm of the opinion that if we knew everybody's story, we couldn't help but love them. I mean, everyone has a story to tell, and so I think that's fantastic. Let's get back to your story though, because you are now transitioned from the editor of Ratchet and Wrench magazine to now the Group Editorial Director for the Vehicle Repair Group at Endeavor, which means you're going to be overseeing, 7, 8 different magazines. Is that correct?
Yeah, about that.
How is your day-to-day going to change now, given this transition?
So I'm right now in the process of training the new editor at Ratchet and Wrench. So once he's fully trained and once he's got a grasp of his duties and his responsibilities, then my duties are going to shift to more of like you said, a coaching type position where I'm helping the editors. I'm creating processes and systems for the entire group. Working on structure for the group. Guiding the team through editorial. So that's the big change. Like it's more of a strategic position where I'm helping just develop the long game strategy for the group and how we're going to grow and improve in the marketplace and share these great stories and help our audience.
That's exciting. That's exciting, man. Well,
Yeah.
Congratulations, and I'm excited for you. You get to cast the vision and have your team drive that mission towards it. So we talked about Ratchet and Wrench. Of course, next week is a big conference for Ratchet and Wrench. So go ahead and share what is coming up regarding this conference.
Yeah, so we've got our Ratchet and Wrench Management Conference in Orlando, Florida. It's our annual show where we bring together shop owners from around the country, and we do it big. We have a good time. We have over 30 educational sessions taught peer-to-peer, so it's like shop owner to shop owner, just teaching one another various aspects of the business, from operations, sales and marketing, communication, leadership, MSO development. So there's lots and lots of topics that shop owners can really dig their heels into. If they're a small shop aspire to grow big, a big shop aspire to grow bigger, there's something for everybody there. So we've got that going on. We've got a lot of fun planned. We've got a big margarita themed party. Velo is going to be doing their victory lap, which is a bunch of RC cars, racing around. So it's going to be fun. And then this year we've got, for the first time, we've got an exhibit hall. We're actually doing an exhibit hall this year. So we've got a big place to highlight all of our ad partners who are riding along. And of course, your partner, Brandon's going to be there. I'm excited to hear Brandon Jones. So it's going to be a good time in Orlando. So if there's any shop owners who are still on the fence or still haven't considered coming, or if you're local and you want to pop in, by all means, rwconference.com. You can use my coupon code ChrisJones24 and you can get $100 off and join us in Orlando.
Love it. So ChrisJones24 to get $100 off. Give us the website one more time.
rwconference.com.
Excellent. And I'm going to say it just because you said it already, but I got to say it again. My business partner, Brandon Jones, who I believe is the best performance coach in the industry, is also a keynote speaker there, and I know he's going to crush it. So I'm excited for him. Well, Chris, man, we didn't really get into this, but I know you're a sports guy. We talked a little bit about how you're a sports writer back then. I'm going to have some hot take questions for you. So,
all right.
Football season is around the corner. In fact, I believe that by the timing of this episode, the first game might even be tomorrow night, or at least the following week, for the NFL. That is. And I know you're a Pittsburgh guy, right? You're a Steelers fan?
I am, yes.
Okay, so I want to see, I guess the two questions that I have right now is, first, give me the two teams that are going to make it to the Super Bowl this year. Who you got?
Oh, man. Woo, this is one of those way too early to call things. But, I from the NFC side, man, that's tough. There's some good stuff on the NFC. I'm inclined to take San Francisco again, honestly. I think I think they're a good team. I think they're tough to beat, but Philadelphia, they're good too. So I don't know. I'm going to roll with the 49ers. I think the 49ers, they get back.
Hey man, you can't, that sounds like a good pick to me. You can't go wrong with them. And what about the AFC side?
AFC side, ooh man, gosh. I don't want to be a loyalist to the Steelers. But, I think on the AFC side, gosh, I almost hate to say it, but I think it could be Baltimore this time around. As much as I hate to say it, I think the Ravens have enough to get it done.
Yeah. I think it falls on Lamar Jackson. It's got to be, he's got to step up to the plate. So, okay. So let's say you have Ravens and 49ers. Who's winning it all?
Oh, gee. Woo, man, I tell you, if it's Ravens and 49ers, I think it's I think it's Ravens, unfortunately. I hate to say it, but I would think that the Ravens win that one.
Okay. Man, you hated that they got there. You hated that they're winning. But
Yeah.
it's going to happen inevitably. Someone's going to win it. But
I got to be a reporter. I got to be objective, and that's what I got to say.
Okay. Well, hey, so that makes me ask another question. So as a reporter, how challenging is it to be objective?
Depends on the topic. Honestly, no. For the most part, it's not that difficult to be objective in our industry, with the exception, I think sometimes it's difficult to be objective when it comes to right to repair, because that's a commonsensical thing that independents deserve their due. But that's where it's very difficult, I think, to be objective in that scenario. But everything else isn't that difficult to be objective in automotive.
That's fair. Okay. Well, let's. I want to ask a few more automotive related questions, beginning with communication. You are very well versed in communication, whether it be on paper or even in the podcasts that you've been hosting for a while now. How important is communication in the workplace, in a shop, for example?
Oh, communication is pinnacle in any scenario. Good communication is everything, and I think everything in terms of how things go really ride on communication, really ride on how people are getting along, how people talk to each other, how people are interpreting even nonverbal communication.
Sure. So let me ask you this, because what we know about communication is that when there's a breakdown, voids tend to get created, and oftentimes negativity fills those voids. In a shop environment, the shop is, especially, when it's humming, it is just, it's nonstop. It's a grind. It really is. And something I try to coach a lot of folks on is the importance of one-on-ones. And while we all see the value and the benefits of the one-on-ones, some of the kickback I get is like, man, I just didn't have time. We have so much going on, or this person was out, or the shuttle was out, or whatever. And something I try to encourage everyone to be mindful of is the one-on-ones. It's really like an investment, and with an investment, you're having to give up something in order to get something in return. So I try to coach folks on how the one-on-ones are really more like, this is a firm, concrete part of your schedule, and you squeeze other things in around the one-on-ones. But for a lot of shops, that's not the case. What's your take, or what advice would you give to knowing the importance of communication and how beneficial it can be? What do you say to shop owners who just refuse to embrace this concept of taking some time away from the shop life, if you will, to devoting it to communication with their team members?
Yeah, so I think there's two ways to approach it. One, you can batch it. So say, okay, every Thursday or every Friday is going to be my one-on-one day. I'm just going to not have anything scheduled that day. I'm just going to get with my team, and that's just team day for me. And that's my process. So 10 o'clock, 10:30, 11, 11:30, 12, 12:30. I'm just meeting with people all day long, and that's just what I do every Friday. Or if you feel like you are pressed for time, okay, we've got these 30-minute, 45-minute one-on-ones. I only have about 30, 15, 20 minutes. Then change the scope. Say, okay, well, I don't have 30 minutes to sit down with you today for this meeting. It's very important for us to have this one-on-one. I value you as a team member. Can we talk for 15 minutes, and then next week we'll resume with our full meeting?
Okay, I
so
like it.
Just communicating, one, that they're important to you.
Yes.
That's number one. Communicate that they're important, and that meeting is important to you. And then two, have that meeting, even if it's a scaled down meeting. Just change the scope of the meeting, have it for a few minutes, and then reconvene the following week and pick it up where you left off.
Chris, man, you're literally talking about communicating about the communication. Like this, it's so important that we're being proactive. And again, I don't want to glaze over this either. Communicating that they're important to you. You don't want to invalidate somebody. You don't want to unintentionally dismiss someone. A lot of folks want and deserve their voice to be heard, and their opinions to matter, and their ideas to be considered. And so we need to make sure that we are making that time, even when we don't, quote unquote, have the time. How are we making that time? And what you just described is a great way to make that time. What we learn about communication is how it creates more engagement with team members. And studies show that 70% of employees, regardless of the industry, 70% of employees are disengaged at work because they don't feel seen and heard and valued and understood and acknowledged and cared for and all those things. So they start looking elsewhere and they start thinking, hey, you know what? The grass is greener on the other side. But Chris, you and I both know that the grass is green where we water it. And a way that we can water the grass is by regularly showing up for our team members in a way that they may not be accustomed to. And that in turn begins to increase team member retention. So my question to you in regards to how to retain team members outside of communicating and being proactive with communication, what suggestions do you have in terms of how to maintain and retain team members in a shop?
Yeah, I think being interested in people, something I do when I sit down with our editors and our assistant editors and our associate editors is I ask them how they're doing. I ask them how they're feeling. I always say, I know it's a very weird question to have someone ask you how you're feeling mentally or physically, but I think it's very important that you're taking care of yourself because burnout's a real thing in this industry, and I don't want you to burn out. So how are you feeling? And then I ask them, what resources do you need? Like, what do you need that I can provide for you that you don't have right now?
That's so good. Such a good question.
And then I check in with them on their career goals. I'll say, hey, where do you see yourself, in our group, in this industry, where do you see yourself? And then do you want to advance? Do you want me to, are there any skills that I can teach you from my bag? Is there any way that I can help you achieve your goals? Because when you're better, we're all better.
Love that.
And I just always try to stress that whole team element that if you improve, the rest of the team gets better as by proxy, just because you've gotten better.
Yeah, so good, man. People don't care what you know. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And just by showing up like that, it goes such a long way. And I love that question. What resources do you need, or what resources can I help you with? I think that's fantastic to talk to your team about. Okay, Chris, last question. How can our audience get in touch with you?
Sure. So you can find me at Christopher in the letter J at Endeavor B, the letter B, 2, the number 2, B.com. So that's my email, ChristopherJ at EndeavorB2B.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn, kind of camp out there. And I'd love to hear from anyone who is interested in just talking about the industry and ways that we can collaborate to improve it.
Excellent. And you can also go to Orlando in September 12th to the 14th to visit Chris in person at the Ratchet and Wrench Management Conference. Man, Chris Jones, it was such a pleasure to have you on, man. So glad that you're here. Hopefully this isn't our last podcast episode together, but thanks for being here.
Oh, it's a pleasure to join you, Josh, and looking forward to what you do in the industry, man, and how you shake things up.
Thank you. Appreciate you, Chris. And thank you for listening. If you like this episode, please consider leaving a review. The more reviews we have, the more these episodes get pushed out and allows us to reach people and build leaders. So thank you for tuning in to the Limitless Leadership Podcast. Have a great day, everyone. Don't forget to smile today. Tell your loved ones how much they mean to you. I'm Josh Parnell, reminding you to keep leading well.